All right. In this video, we are going to finally tackle our new Simon game. We spent the last few videos talking about arrays and how they are basically variables that can hold other variables, great for long chunks of data. And for a Simon game where we need to keep track of all of the previous, lights and sounds and colors that the game has added for us to play in. That's all built up to this moment, right? I already went and pre-writ this to-do list here because it would probably be pretty boring to watch me type all this out. So I went and made this. This video isn't about how to write to-do lists or how to make good ones. That'll probably be a good topic for a later one. But yeah, let's see what we have to do to get this Simon game made. So first here, right? We want to get Simon to show the correct series of lights. That's basically what we've been working up to at this point, meaning the first thing we'll have to do to get that done is we're going to have to create an array of random numbers, 0 to 9, with no repeats. Then we are going to show those lights one at a time, once just for level 1, right? So that the player can then go and hit that light. And then it increases with each level. Every time that the player passes a level, we tack on an extra light. And then we want the lights to be different colors for each position, right? Simon only has those, the red, yellow, and blue, but then, or I'm sorry, red, yellow, blue, and green. There you go. Red, yellow, blue, and green. But then we also have different sounds with that as well, a different sound for each position. So we're going to do that as well. As you get better, as you progress further down the line of levels in Simon, it almost starts to sound musical as each one lights up, right? So we want to create that as well. We're going to want some controls. So A will move us around the circuit playground clockwise, and B will move us around the circuit playground counterclockwise. And then using A and B at the same time, we'll select our pixel. The gameplay, right, on win, right? When the player makes a selection, we're going to check that random number array to see if they're correct. So we'll imagine here that this is just level 1, right? Or level 0. We'll have one number in the 0th position of random nums. Let's say that was a 2. And if they go to light number 2 and select it, and there are no more selections to make, which would be the case for level 0, because that's the only one, then we'll move to the next level. And we'll increase the level by 1 and then have Simon show those lights. But if there are more selections to make, right, then we move to the next item in the array. So on level 2, then we let the player has to select the 0th light, which we said was 2. Then we'll imagine that the next one was 8. Then they have to go and select 8. If they do it and there are no more levels, then they won. So we play the winning lights and sounds and reset the game. Now, if they go to select an item and it wasn't the correct light according to the random num array, well, then they lost. Show the losing lights and sounds and reset the game. Finally, some extras that we might want to add. We might want to say that when the player selects a pixel, then we should light up the correct color and play the correct sound. That's what happens when you play Simon, right? Simon, when it's showing the lights and sounds for the player to press, lights up those lights and sounds. But when the player presses them, it also lights up the lights and sounds. Good player feedback there. Maybe a start screen where we light up random pixels with their correct color and sounds until the player presses a button. It's always good to have a game do something until the player decides to actually do something, especially with the circuit playground. If all the lights are off and it's making no sounds, the player might not even think that it's on. It might think the battery's died, right? So it's always good to do some sort of idle animation so that the player knows that their device isn't broken. Then maybe we could use the switch, right, for difficulty. By default, the switch is to the right, so we could have that be easy with no timer. And then maybe to the left is hard mode with a timer. All right. So with all that said, let's get started. We've already created our array, kind of, right? So with this code, this was where we left off last class or last video. And if I play this and show the console, right, we have our sorted list that has numbers 1 to 10, and then our random list, which basically shuffles that list and gives us a random set of numbers. But that was 1 to 10. I wanted to make things a little bit difficult, so I made it 1 to 10 instead of 0 to 9. But 0 to 9 is what we want, because that's what the lights are displaying, right? So let's make this 1 to 10. All we did there was take index and add 1 to it. So we can just take that back out. Stop, refresh, and now we have the same thing, except we have sorted go 0 to 9 now. So that random is 0 to 9 as well. So now that that's done, we don't need the console log anymore. So I'll just pop those out. There we go. And we are going to start using functions now as well. So we haven't really touched on this yet, but a function really just allows us to use this code later without having to retype everything, which is great because, we're going to want to do this when we start, but every time that we need to reset the game, right? When we win and when we lose, we want to run this again so we could shuffle this. So I'm going to pop everything out but this, so that when I make a function, we'll just call this one we'll just call it shuffle. That sounds good to me. And shuffle will do that. We could move this way out of the way, so we never have to worry about it again. And on start, we create our random nums empty array and our sorted nums empty array. And then we will call shuffle. Now, one thing we want to make sure that we do here, though, at the beginning of the game, we don't really have to worry about whether random nums is empty, because it's empty at the beginning. But on a restart, we want to make sure that random nums is empty, so that when we run this shuffle, it's not just adding more random numbers to the end of that array. We actually go and delete it. So let's also add set random nums to empty array at the top of shuffle. That way random nums is empty every time we shuffle. We don't have to worry about that from index, because remember that we're actually removing values from the values from sorted nums. So sorted nums is actually empty by the end of this. So we don't have to worry about emptying that. All right. So that's done. Every time we complete something, we'll just make it a plus sign instead of negative. So now we need to show these lights one at a time. So we'll put this in a forever loop. And forever, we're going to show these lights one at a time, right? So we're obviously going to need light and set pixel color at. And we're also going to want to turn it off when it's done, of course. And where do we want to show which pixel, right? Remember that the quick review of this block here, pixel color at the first bubble is where on the circuit playground. So if we leave this at 0, it's going to light up the first light. I play. Now, if let me take the black out of there so we can see that. There we go. So that's where on the circuit playground, 0 all the way to 9. And every number in between, like 4, is a number in between 0 to 9. And then obviously the color is the color, right? So if I make that green instead of red, we change the color. So where do we want to show the pixel? Well, we created that random nums list for a reason. So we want to show it at random nums. And every time we refresh the game, random nums is a different number, random num 0. But we don't always want it to be 0, right? We want it to be a different value each time the game is played. So we need some way of also keeping track of the level, right? So let's do that. Let's create a new variable and we'll call it level. And we can't just say show it at level, because as the level increases, then we are going to only play that last one. And that's not how Simon works. It doesn't just show the last light, the latest light that we're adding, right? It shows every light we previously entered, then it adds the next one for that next level. So a perfect loop for this would be our for index loop, right? Where we're looping from 0 to level. So at the beginning, it's just from 0 to 0, meaning we only loop once, but we show index, right? And then as index gets bigger, then we increase it all the way up to 9. For example, this should just show, well, it's only showing red because we black it out, but here we go. So this should show the last thing it did before, right? Where it's only showing level 0 because I set level to 0. But let's just do 0 to 9. And it should very quickly light up all of them. A little too quickly. So let's do a pause. We're going to delete this later. We don't need this pause here, but there we go. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Half a second. And now it's lighting up one by one for each level. Now that's obviously not what we want. At some point, we're going to have to increase level, right? But we'll get there. That's a little bit later in our notepad here, right? We're going to increase the level when we make the selections, all of the correct selections for that level. Then we'll increase the level. Now, great. So we show one at a time for each level. And we increase for each level. Now we want to make sure we do lights and sounds as well. Now, how are we going to get unique lights and unique sounds for each pixel and somehow tie that into random nums? Interesting. Good question. So what we're going to need to do is let's pull this out for a second. And let's look at show frame of animation. Except not forever, sorry. Just on start. So actually I could have put that in there. That poor thing is freaking out. All right, let's take that out still. There we go. So here we kind of have that already, right? On this thing. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for this one. You know, the red repeats, so it's not unique for each one. I could make this a little bit better. You know, I'm noticing now that it's missing a yellow. So maybe if that was red, orange, and then yellow, and then all the rest, then this pink would be at the end, and that would be perfect. But for now, this is all we really need. So, sometimes MakeCode crashes. That's okay. There we go. Play. All right. So we have a unique color for each light, pretty much. We just need to find out how we can get these colors so that we can make an array of those colors. Well, one thing we could do is use another for index loop, right? Where we go from index to 9 and just console log the light color, the pixel color at the certain position. So we want to get like, what is that pixel color? What is that pixel color? What is that pixel color? All the way up to 9. Pixel color at index. And if I go in my console log, I've got all those numbers just like that. Now, I've already pasted all of those into my notepad here so that we don't have to do that later. So if you want to pause the video here and get those numbers, you know, they're right there. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing, except for sounds as well. So I'll pop that out, throw it away. And if I go to music and I bring out play tone at C, now I know that if I just play white keys on a keyboard, I get a pretty decent like little scale where it'll sound nice. So if I start at C for pixel 0 and just work my way up the keyboard, you know, it'll sound pretty decent. So if I press C, I see that that's 262. And if I work my way up the keyboard, the numbers increase. And I can tie each one, starting from C, 262, all the way up 10. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Pixel number 9 will be 659. And I can create an array with those numbers as well. And if you want to see those numbers, you can copy them. I already put those in my notepad as well. All right, and what I'll do is I will save this notepad here, and I will put a link to it in the description of this video. So here I'll actually put that this is the colors, right? We'll call this Simon Colors, and we'll call this Simon Sounds. That way, when it goes in the description, you all know what that does. All right. So now I will go ahead and create 2 more arrays where we set Simon Colors and Simon Sounds. To the arrays that they are there. So I'm going to, I'll pause the video here and then I'll just jump right to when that is finished. All right, now we have these 2 arrays. So Simon Colors has the colors basically of the rainbow, right? Red all the way back to red, Roy G. Biv all the way back to red. And then we have the Simon Sounds, and that goes from that middle C sound all the way up to the last sound on the keyboard when you follow the white keys 10 times. What we need to do now is tie those into the random nums list, but we have a problem, right? And we'll show what that problem is now. If I just say here, where we're getting the color, set pixel color at get value index 2, and then I put Simon Colors in there, or I guess Simon Colors 0. Well, Simon Colors 0 is always red. So if I let's take black out again for a second. So we can't just say Simon Colors get value at 0. And, you know, another thing we might do is get value at index, but index is always 0 at the beginning. So each one would go up with each level, which would produce different lights each time, right? Let's do that actually. Let's do, let's put index there and then maybe another pause because, this might be what we think we might have to do, and change that to 9. So now we are getting all the different colors, but the problem is the colors are shuffled. We didn't want the colors to be shuffled. We wanted the colors to light up around the circuit playground correctly. We just wanted the numbers, the lights we show to be random, when we show them. So the first part's working perfectly. We're lighting them up randomly, but these colors aren't in the order of the rainbow like we expect. So we can't just do that either. We can't just shove index in there. So what are we going to do? Simon colors get value at. Well, we know that we want to tie Simon colors to random numbers. So let's just pull that out for a second. Let's get random nums get value at. And we'll put that there. And then when we refresh, we seem to be right. Every time we shuffle, we're getting the lights in the correct place that we expect. Like the reds and pinks over in this area, the greens over in this area. We know red is at 0. The blues and indigos are over here. But let's go ahead and, take this level back out and do 9, and let's see what happens. All right, so that's not doing anything. It's getting the right color for the first one, but then never again, right? All the colors light up that same color. So we're getting closer to our answer. We want to get random numbers, but not just to get value at 0. We want this to increase as we loop through. Well, we know we can do that again just by pulling index over here. And now we light up every time, lighting them up in random order, but getting the exact colors that we expect. Now, how exactly I did that, right? You may think like, I'll never be able to do that. That I would never have been able to figure that out. Trust me, you will. These things take a little bit of time to learn. But let's look at this visually, right? I'll bring out my my chalkboard again and think about how we want to connect these, right? So the first time we were connecting random nums to just 0. We were just connecting them in order, which means that 2 was red, and then eventually we'll play the sound C. But we know that's not right. 2 doesn't need to be red. 0 needs to be red. So then what we eventually figured out was we want to connect to the number that's in the first position or the 0th position, right? Remember that's, let's actually do this really quick. I should have done this when I pre-made this, but let's go ahead and do this in green. Looks good to me. So let's go ahead and label these positions, right? With this is index. Let's specify that too. There we go. Index, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and of course ending with 9. There we go. So now, if I go back to blue, so now we know that the 2 is in the 0 position. But what we want from random nums 2 is saying that this is the light, that the place on the circuit playground we want to light up. But then we want the second position from Simon Lights and Simon Sounds, right? Meaning when we light up 2, we want to get now the second position for each of these, right? Like that. Oop, except skipping 8. Sorry about that. So like this. That's better. So when we light up the second light, we make it orange and we play D on the keyboard. And when we do 8, when we light up the 8th light, we light up violet, not violet, sorry, 8th light, whoop, over here. We light up pink, we play a high D on the keyboard, like that. And so on, right? All the way down the line. So just pick a random one here when we do 7. We light up violet. We play a high C on the keyboard. Everything from the 7th position except for random nums. So we're saying that we want to select, we want to grab that 7 from random nums and then get the 7th position from all the other arrays. And when we do that, that looks exactly like this. In the Simon Colors array, get the value at random nums in the array Simon Colors, look into the array of random nums and then get the value at, and then with this one we change every time we loop. So get value at 0 from random nums on the first level, 1 on the second level, 2 on the third level, and so on. Right? And then we'll turn that off. Then what we're going to want to do is the same thing with the sounds. Oh, we got, did I throw away level? Looks like I did. Let me get level back here. There we go. So now we're going to do the same thing with the sounds. We're going to play, not middle C each time, and I'm going to pause that because that's going to get really annoying real quick. So we do not middle C, but Simon sounds, get value at random nums, get value at index. So really annoying, but let's do this here. So you see there, each time it goes around, it's playing the right one. And it's playing what we expect, right? Lower sounds, the lower the number, and higher sounds, the higher the number. And if I take level out and I make this do this 0 to 9, let's see what that sounds like. All right, it's doing the whole thing, but you get the idea. And that's actually this would actually be a good thing for our start screen when we were talking about extras there, right? Except maybe with a slower delay. It's a little annoying to go that fast, but not bad. So now we have created how we show the player the thing that they have to do. So we can make this a function. Right? We can just call this objective, or maybe show objective. Maybe that's better. Well, we're showing it and we're playing the sound. So maybe just objective is better. So there we go. We're going to go ahead and grab right in there. And there's our objective. So at the beginning of the game, we call objective. Now we don't want that to keep going. We want it to stop and then let the player know that it's their turn. Let's start knocking things off there. So now we need it to stop so that it just shows it. So it just shows it once and then lets the player input that. So we've done this before when we did the Cyclone game. We had a way of, doing different, what we might call scenes, right? There's the objective scene where we show the player the objective, or maybe the Simon scene, right? Where Simon tells us what the player needs to do. And then it's the player's turn. It's the player's scene. So we could do that with the new variable. We can just call this like player ready. Of course, at the beginning, we'll set player ready to 0. And we'll only call objective when player ready is equal to 0. And then what we'll do is, as soon as we're done calling the objective, we will set player ready to 1. And now we just play it once. Now we have to do something with setting the player ready to 1, right? We have to let the player, should probably code something to get the player to do their thing. So, but as far as we're concerned, Simon's pretty much completely coded.